Thug Life presents.
Good morning, y'all. Feels good to be alive, man. Man, 7 years I call this. 7 years, the darkness, from darkness to redemption. Let's, I like that. Most people's journey, y'all, into addiction sometimes begins innocently enough. I can think of parties, right? Peer pressure, maybe a momentary lapse of judgment, right? For me, the descent was anything but typical. Just at the ripe, innocent age of 17 years old, my life took a turn few can imagine. My introduction to heroin and crack cocaine didn't happen in some party or after a night out with friends. It happened in the depths of Cook County Jail, a place where hope goes to die and survival comes at a cost. 1996, I was arrested and I was locked up for a crime I didn't commit. Spent almost 2 years in an unforgiving jail, surrounded by violence, death, despair, and crushing weight of the system, right? That wasn't interested in justice and rehabilitation, right? The abuse that I endured in there wasn't just emotional, it was physical, psychological, and spiritual. One of my abusers in life I later discovered was a serial killer. You heard it. The trauma of those 2 years shaped me into the ways I'm still unpacking to this. By the time I walked out of Cook County Jail in '98, I had lost more than my freedom.
Not only my manhood,
to the abuse that I suffered. I ain't afraid to say it. How do you think I got to where I'm at today? Rigorous honesty. I lost my innocence, my faith in humanity, my sense of self, and worst of all, I had lost one thing I thought I could hold on to. The promise never to use hard drugs in that hellish environment. Heroin and crack cocaine became my escape, my way of numbing the pain and surviving day-to-day brutality. But it was forced on me too. You didn't know that, right? I didn't have an option. The same person who did the abuse also supplied the drugs. Even that jail didn't feel like free. It felt like a continuation of a nightmare, just in a different setting, right? I didn't walk out whole, walk out broken. I want you to picture a 17-year-old kid for once, locked up for a crime he didn't commit, surrounded by violence, chaos, despair. From 96 to 98, I was caged in a system that was not designed to rehabilitate, but to crush me and did. I endured abuse so dehumanizing that it stripped me of my dignity, my innocence. The only other person who ever did damage to me, who did the most damage besides me, was later identified as a serial. Yes, I didn't leave that place whole, y'all. I left broken, traumatized, and hooked on heroin and crack. As a result of what was going on, I never thought I would use those drugs. It took me to get behind those bars, into that cell, into the hands of somebody to even be introduced to any of that. Imagine the odds, it's like rolling the dice. 17 years old, released after 2 years of addicted substances. My mother, I'm just so happy that my mother came and got me, put the house up and came and got me against all odds. She even put her marriage on the line to come get me. I thank my mother. I thank her. In so many ways, she just doesn't even know. Imagine addicted to substances I swore I'd never touch. And probably would never have touched had not been for that time. But I'm carrying that kind of emotional scars that don't heal overnight, if ever. I didn't just walk out of jail. I walked out with 3 strikes against me. My manhood stolen, my mind clouded by drugs, and my future stolen also and seemingly doomed. Now, for the sake of today, I'll fast forward and save y'all some of the gory stuff, right? But to my early 20s, right? And into my 30s, 5 prison stints, right? This is all as a result of what happened the first time. Because all it was after that was chasing the drug high and addiction. Any case that I got locked up for was all in the name of addiction. So, 5 prison stints, being homeless on a train, lost in addiction, making choices that buried me deeper into darkness. I promised myself one time that I'd never use needles. I went almost 20 years of just snorting in the nose. But I thought to myself, if I ever crossed that line, it would probably be after my mother passed, because of the sadness that I would probably be too much for me to bear. You see, addiction doesn't wait for your timeline. In the final 4 months before getting sober, depression consumed me. And I don't know where, but I just started using needles. This girl seen me on the train one day, seen all my veins, and said she had a heroin, what was the word she used? Oh yeah, she said she had a heroin orgasm. And she shot me up that day. And let me tell you this, I was I didn't know what I was doing. My skin, when I got into rehab, my skin was like leather. I could barely stretch my arm out. Like my left arm, I could barely stretch it out fully because of how tight the skin was from me shooting in the same vein. Like you're not even supposed to do the things that I was doing to my skin. I'm surprised like I can still use my arms. The doctors was like, I don't even know how you're still able to use your limbs still. But when my mother found out that I was shooting up, and she even heard about me saying that I would never shoot up until she passed, and when she found out, the heartbreak that I see in her eyes, it shattered me, y'all. 7 years ago to this day, I finally decided to change. Not because of divine intervention or promises from a higher power. Let's put that to bed right now. I don't know what God does for your life, but he didn't show up in my life. So I put my faith in the evidence, the people who showed up. My recovery was possible because of the tools that I worked with others. The idea that despite everything, I could rebuild. But see, that God in that book, the God of Israel, says that I have to be broken and I have to stay broken in order to receive his help that I never got. So why am I investing in something that does not work? So I put my trust in what I can see right in front of me. Sobriety for me was breaking the stigma. That was what a lot of sobriety was, breaking the stigma of if something is repeating over and over again, so obviously it's not working. So sobriety isn't just abstaining from drugs. For me, it means reclaiming everything addiction stole. My dignity, my dreams, my humanity. It means rejecting outdated notions of what recovery looks like. AA, NA, CA, DA, PA. You know what's the problem with that? It's got anonymous attached to it. Okay? For me, it means rejecting outdated notions, okay? Let's talk about marijuana, for example. Non-addictive addiction, for me, isn't about whether or not someone uses marijuana, okay? I'm no longer shooting up or smoking crack, and that's the real battle. Marijuana is medicine. Science backs that up. It's taught in schools, okay? I'm thinking about enrolling in spring, in the course that's at Oakland College. All right, now, display for medical purposes and even becoming part of the financial market soon. Yet some people still judge. People that judge me are still clinging to antiquated stigmas. Frankly, I refuse to argue with anyone stuck in those old narratives. It's beneath me to debate with someone who hasn't even taken the time to educate themselves. I mean, like, come on, a simple Google search could teach you more about cannabis in a lifetime of outdated opinions. Okay? The bigger picture to me, my story just isn't about addiction. It's about the resilience to overcome unmanageable odds. It's about surviving abuse, y'all. Systemic injustice and the darkest depths of despair to become a better version of myself. I've lived through the kind of experiences that would destroy most people. Let's be honest. Yet here I am celebrating 7 years of sobriety in the backseat of my mother's car. I want people to know. I want people to know that recovery is possible. That even when the odds are stacked against you. I mean, I've been homeless. I've lived on the train. I've been in prison 5 times and I've battled addiction for decades. But I'm still standing. Okay? Still growing and still proving that change is possible, y'all. To anyone struggling, don't let your past define your future. It doesn't matter how deep you're involved in this. There's always a way out. Look at me. Sobriety is more than just a choice. It's a commitment to yourself. One day at a time. I scream it from the rooftops. It's in all my music. Thank you for listening to my story and for being a part of this journey. Here's the 7 years of freedom and counting.